don't know if we've kind of mentioned this before, but I think the most important concept when learning music is this idea of context. It's the only thing that matters, you know, because like this E doesn't mean anything until we place it with another note. Now it's kind of sad and mysterious, but what if we choose to place it with this note? It's kind of happy. What if we place it with this note? Now we've got punk rock all of a sudden. Like that E hasn't changed, but the situations that we've put it in alter our perception of it.
Yes.
And so when we're playing music, we are dealing with notes that are presented harmonically, happening at the same time, or notes that are presented melodically. But neither of those situations change the way the notes work. Like they still kind of imply the same kind of sounds and that kind of thing. So when we understand what a note is doing in a certain context, then we can intentionally use that note to create whatever we like, right?
Yes.
So here's an example melodically. Like here's an A minor 7 arpeggio, kind of a bit sad and mysterious, right? Here's an A minor 7 first inversion arpeggio, which just simply means I'm playing the notes in a different order. Same notes, but it's a lot kind of more happy and upbeat. Because in the first one, I'm playing a minor third interval first. We're hearing kind of everything in the context of it occurring after that minor third interval. It kind of skews our perception to kind of hearing that a little bit more dark and mysterious. But in the second example, I'm playing a major third interval first. So that kind of shifts our perception of the notes that we hear melodically to kind of that happier vibe. See that?
Yeah.
And so when we are learning about chords and context and all of that kind of stuff, what we're doing is understanding how the notes behave harmonically. What happens if we add a different, if we add a ninth scale degree to a chord? How does that change the vibe from a normal -7, when we add the ninth? But then also when we arrange notes melodically, does the order we put notes in matter? Like if we're trying to play a really kind of dark, mysterious melody, we probably don't want to be starting a melody with like a happy kind of interval.
Yeah.
So the only thing that matters in music is context. All we're doing as we learn more about music is understanding how to more intentionally apply context.
Okay.
And the thing is, even if you have no interest in music theory and you're just going to play by ear or do whatever, you're creating your own context.
Yes.
Like there's no way we can learn music without having a context. Let's just say we're playing a C chord and we figure out, oh, that sounds nice over top of it. Playing that G major triad. If you understand music, you understand the theoretical context of why that works, that you're implying a major 9 chord and you know what that major 9 tonality is going to sound like. You can intentionally use that. Like you've got a solid context with which you can interpret that information. But if you don't have that, you're like, oh, that kind of sounded good. And then you start making connections between what you know and why it works. But if you don't have any kind of foundation to build on, then, like at best, your like explanation, the context that you've kind of created is going to be kind of in the ballpark for why it does it that way.
Yes.
Like, do you see what I mean? So people who are like, oh, I don't need music theory, I do like whatever. It's like, cool. But like it's only going to work within the specific little fence that you've set up around yourself, because the context that you're playing in is dependent on your understanding of the environment.
I understand.
So what we want to do as we learning music is make sure that we have like a stupidly solid foundation that no matter what we learn continues to strengthen itself like up and out. Because what happens when we do it that way is we learn a new piece of information, it just slots in. And our understanding of the new piece of information reinforces our understanding of other pieces of information because we're like, like that's like that thing. That's connected to that. That works the same way as that. You know, it's not like we're learning any new information. We're just learning how to use it slightly differently.
You need to take the recording of this video, take everything you said in the last 2 minutes, and make it a YouTube short. No, dude, that was the best articulated selling point for music theory I've ever heard. Not that I needed a selling point, but I did need some motivation for discipline. I understand the value of it, but what you just said was it spoke to me and I understood, and it made sense in my little pea brain. So
now that's the thing, man. People don't have a problem with music theory and stuff. They have a problem with discipline, right? The discipline to actually understanding it, you know? I never claim that learning music is always easy or fun, you know? Often it's not. When we've talked about this, it's the macro kind of thing that's enjoyable.
Yeah.
But yeah, the context, I think, I kind of realized this years ago. I was like, context is all that matters in music. Whenever you're trying to learn, this is probably a really good thing to keep in mind. Whenever you're trying to learn something new in music, ask yourself, what is the context of this information? How can I add this to the context I already have? What is the context? Because if you're learning something and it doesn't have a context, well, it's not helpful information. You know, that either means that you're learning something in a really silly way that doesn't make any sense and you shouldn't be learning it that way, or it means that you don't understand the concept thoroughly enough. You're missing a crucial piece of information. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess it's like people who don't want to learn music theory or have anything to do with it. It's like they've kind of learned a few words, and then I've looked at the words and said, oh, these words use these letters, therefore that must be the whole alphabet. That's my alphabet. And it's like, cool, man. But there are actually other letters in the alphabet that you haven't used yet, and you ignoring those is really going to shoot yourself in the foot, because now you don't have the context to be able to use other words to kind of express things, to spell things correctly. It's that kind of idea. They've taken words, looked at them and said, oh, this must be the alphabet because these are the only letters they've been using.
Yeah.
Whereas what we want to do is understand that, okay, here's this whole alphabet. Maybe right now we're not using all of the letters, but that's okay. We understand that they're going to be important later. And as we kind of learn a new word that uses that letter, you're like, that's that one. All right, now let me kind of zone in on that, So I think it's stupidly important when we're learning music to not get caught up on music theory that's beyond where we're at right now, but to understand on a macro sense how that is helpful.
Yes.
Or going to be in the future. Because that way, what we can do is add detail to it as we learn more. Here's a really good example of that. You're familiar with your A major chord, basic, right? D major chord, E major chord. These are major triads, right? Now, those are often the first three chords people start learning. Then we might learn our E minor chord, our A minor chord, and our D minor chord. Okay? Now, to the uninitiated, E major and A minor look very similar. They're the exact same shape, just down a string. And so if you don't know what you're doing, you might be like, oh, these two are kind of similar. You see the visual connection and you're like, okay. And whether or not you actively articulate that to yourself or not, you have this kind of subconscious understanding that they're related somehow. The thing is, they're not related at all. So what I like to do when I'm teaching students these minor chords is we notice, yep, they look the same, but that's a coincidence. That's nothing. It doesn't mean anything. What we want to notice is that actually between this D minor chord and this D major, between the D major chord and the D minor chord, all we're doing is taking this note that's at the top and dropping it 1 fret. We have to rearrange our fingers to do that, so it looks a bit different, but all we're doing is taking this note that's at the top and dropping it 1 fret. And then between the A major and the A minor, all we're doing is taking this note that's at the top and dropping it 1 fret.
3. So we've got the 5, 5, 1, 3.
No.
No?
Wait. Which chord are you playing? I can't see.
Sorry, D.
Oh yeah. 5, 1, 3. That's right. So we're dropping the third one fret, right? But a beginner doesn't know that it's the third. But all we're doing is pointing out that the A minor and the E major chord are not related at all. But we're saying, hey, between D major and D minor, there's this 1 fret difference. Between A major and A minor, there's this 1 fret difference. Between E major and E minor, it's an open string, but there's still a 1 fret difference. And so now we can see that there's this kind of predictable pattern that's happening between a major chord and a minor chord. And like, that's what we need to know right now. We don't have to understand the theory as to why that is. We don't need to know that it's going from a 1-3-5 to a 1-flat-3-5. But we understand that these are not related, and that there is kind of something that's happening between these shapes that all kind of seem random, but actually it turns out they're not as random as we thought. Because another thing is, A major and A minor, D major and D minor, they don't look stupidly similar when you're starting out. They kind of are very different shapes. E major and E minor, kind of similar, because we can say, oh, we just get rid of a finger. But these two, they kind of look a bit different. So we don't naturally make the connection that they're essentially very close to the same thing. And so by kind of pointing out how it's just a 1 fret difference, it helps students notice right away that, oh, like there is actually, there's a reason why they move the way they do. Yes, we have to change our fingers to actually just make them a little bit easier to play, but there is a system going on. And then that's what we need to know right now. And later on, as we kind of understand a bit more about chord construction, we can go, oh, the major chord flattened the third, now we get a minor chord. And it just slots straight into our knowledge we have already seen about how these chord shapes behave.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So that's how we want to approach building music theory from the ground up in all aspects of music. We want to... What's that?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Karen.
Oh, no, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, can we repeat the last 5 minutes once more?
From where?
Just from where we were constructing the minor chords.
So,
apologies to derail you.
No, that's all right. So we said that with our basic triads, like major open chords, our basic open chords, they're not actually triads. Well, they are triads, but into semantics here. With our basic open chords, A minor and E minor, A minor and E major, while they look the same, just down a string, are not related in the slightest.
Yes.
But what is related is D major and D minor. And the relationship is that top note that we're playing, it's not the top note theoretically, it just happens to be the top finger when we play these shapes. The top note that we're playing gets dropped 1 fret, and now it's a minor chord. We have to rearrange the fingers to do that, but the shape is essentially the same. With the A major, the top finger that we're playing gets dropped a fret, now it's a minor chord. With E major, the top finger that we're playing gets dropped a fret, now it's a minor chord. And we said that when a student is starting out, that information is all they need to know at that point. Because what's important is that they understand that there is a relationship between the D minor and the D major chord. There is a relationship between the A major and the A minor chord. And these relationships move in a consistent way between the major and the minor version of each chord. So all we need to know when someone's starting out. And later on, we can fill in the knowledge with a more in-depth understanding of music theory when we talk about chord construction. and we can say that a major chord is 1, 3, 5. Those are the scale degrees we play to make a major chord. If we've got a major scale, we're playing the 1, the 3, the 5. Is a major triad. You know, if we want to turn that into a minor triad, we take the 3rd and we flatten it. So when we have an understanding of chord construction, then we can add that, we can slot that into the knowledge we already have about how these chords behave in relation to each other. But what we don't want to do is kind of start thinking that A minor and E minor, they're kind of related, they're the same. Because like if we kind of end up noticing these little things that don't matter, it can end up being really hard for us to slot the correct information in, because we've continued to reinforce this idea that may not actually be an idea that we want to be reinforcing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does that answer your question? I don't know what your question was.
Yes, it does. And it's funny, man, because I feel like you're in the business of deconditioning people out of improper teaching.
Yeah.
It's quite amazing. I appreciate that. Thank you.